Hello and welcome to another episode of the Peninsula Biz Buzz. My name is Shelley Smith. I'm here proudly representing my own company, Premier Rapport, but even more excitedly as the Chamber Liaison for the Peninsula Society of Human Resource and Management, the PenSHRM chapter. And I'm super excited additionally today because of our guest. But over to you, Bob.
Hey, Shelley. Bob McKenna here from the Virginia Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. And here in today's episode of the Peninsula Biz Buzz, we are with Angela Neilan. Neilan, right?
Neilan.
Mm-hmm. See, I got that right. Angela Neilan, president of PenSHRM, and Sahara Sears, who is the president-elect of PenSHRM. Is that correct? Is that the correct term?
Yes. Yep.
Incoming president, president-elect, whatever. But today we're going to talk, first of all, let me ask you, ladies, what does PenSHRM do when unemployment is like 3.7 and the economy is firing on all cylinders and everything is right with the world?
So pre-COVID-19.
Yes.
So pre-COVID-19, the Peninsula chapter of SHRM is a human resource association. So what we offer to our HR professionals on the peninsula and in the Hampton Roads area are resources for their professional development and career growth, resources and networking opportunities and best practices that they can bring to their organizations to make their employees and their organizations successful, to help them navigate changes in the employment landscape and the business world. And keeping them aware and keeping them as a strategic partner throughout everything that's changing. So pre-COVID, that's basically what we did. We offer those professional development opportunities. And what we see now is a big shift in many areas of HR, and a lot of organizations are feeling it. So what we have been working through, we and other chapters across the state and throughout the nation, is working through how are we going to provide the tools and resources that they need to help navigate their organizations through these changes. So a lot of it is figuring out the how we're going to get that information out and available to them. So what we recently did, and what a lot of people are doing, are what we're doing right now, is offering things virtually and making sure that that can work. So Sahara took on a big project here with our first virtual session that we offered to our membership when it came to offering things virtually. But in addition to taking that on, which I'll let her speak to, we have a lot of resources for COVID-19. So we are seeing a lot of things come out, circulating the internet, coming through our inboxes, and it's like, well, there's so much information. How can we just lasso everything and put it all in one place so that our members are getting what they need, the relevant things, the things that are happening right now, changes as they're happening. So we do have a page on our website that's dedicated to a number of resources that are out there. And we do have a members page through Jackson Lewis, through Tom Lucas, who is our legislative chair, and he sends out a number of updates on a weekly, sometimes twice weekly basis to let members know what's happening and what they need to be made aware of as we're going through these changes, so that they can also be compliant with a lot of things that are changing on the legal landscape. So we're offering that in this period of COVID, and as we're trying to shift to make sure that everyone's getting the information that they need. So with the offering things virtually, Sahara took on a big part of that to ensure that a lot of these things are happening behind the scenes for our members to get what they need to help their organizations get through this, the organizations and their employees.
Yeah, and thanks, Angela. Just to add to that, one of the things that we did do, which I don't think we are any different than what most businesses do right now, which is when COVID came, we found ourselves really just having to do an immediate pivot and a shift. So one of the first sessions we did was actually hosted by Shelley, actually did a great session so we could show our members, chapter members, effective ways for how to manage a virtual team. You know, most workforces, I would say, were not quite prepared to have the bulk of their workforce all of a sudden go remote. And that includes things like management, training, communication, things like that. So as a chapter, we were able to pull the talent and resource and knowledge base of Shelley and provide access to a really valuable session on how to manage a virtual team. So that was one of the first things we did. And then the second thing we did was, with our regularly scheduled programs, we worked out a scenario that I'm calling a win-win-win, which is that we still move forward with our regularly scheduled programs, but in lieu of obviously going and attending the Marriott in person because of social distancing, what we're doing instead is all of our registrations that we're capturing for those programs, which are still offering certified credits, right, to our members. We're purchasing food with those registration costs from the Marriott, and we're donating that food to the Peninsula Food Bank. So we have us as a chapter, we're still able to provide programming and content. Our venue, our local partner and a local business is still able to capture some revenue, right, from us not having to cancel our meetings and things like that. And then we're able to simultaneously support our local food bank, which when I spoke with Karen Joyner about you know, their needs and a conversation about logistics at the time, and this was in mid-March, she mentioned that they were at a 33% decrease in perishable items compared to the year prior. So our local food banks are really struggling as well. So this was a great everybody wins scenario that we were able to roll out for the first time this month. And we'll continue to each month for our regular monthly programs until we all, you know, get back to normal.
Well, let me just tell you, that's fantastic. You are pivoting to the new reality, for at least the short-term reality. And at the same time, bringing value to your members, but also demonstrating what a great community partner you are. So I commend you all on that thinking. That's really fantastic. So let's talk, and you both touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about what I just kind of basically mentioned, short-term transformation, because we're all having to transform in the short term, at least, to respond to this COVID-19. Some of those transformations that we have made will become long-term transformations. So can you comment on that?
So I think this is about the new norms that Shelley had talked about in her presentation with us. I'm not sure what to expect with when this, you know, these stay-at-home orders and the COVID is lifted. We're gonna see a lot of we're already seeing a lot of changes right now that folks are looking at as a temporary solution until things kind of settle down. But what that looks like long term, I don't know that folks are really looking at what the impact is going to be long term. And again, I know that Sahara has worked on something that she had shared with me recently on what we can expect with employees at work, in the workplace, and then on a personal level, because as we all know, things in your personal life affect your work life too. So organizations need to take a look at the big picture with what's happening, not just from an organizational standpoint, but from their employees and their personal lives too. You may have seen my son in the background just now. That's my new norm right now, of him trying to come in and get some things that he left in here. And just trying to understand what we can do to realize that when COVID is lifted, how can we go back to what we used to know? Because it's not going to be the same. So Sahara, I'll let you talk a little bit about that, because you had been working on this, what employers, organizations can expect when these things change. You know, we're making some temporary changes, but long term, you know, as far as a long-term solution, I think that's still something that a lot of organizations are trying to figure out. I know that that's something that I'm trying to figure out with my organization, is what this is going to look like when people start coming back to their normal. But what we can expect when they're coming back to their normal, with everything else that people have experienced on a personal level too.
Yeah, so what Angela mentioned as far as some forecasting, you know, outside of PenSHRM, which is my role volunteering professionally, I work for a legal benefit company, and we've been forecasting specifically the impacts that are going to more so impact the workforce. But right, the trickle down effect of that is when the workforce is affected, it also affects the business as well. And eventually that affects the bottom line, whether that's in the form of a soft cost or some nature like that. So one of many things that we're looking at are what are legal issues that employees are going to be facing when they get back to normal. But you know, that's not just legal. This has been a huge disruption in everyone's lives. I mean, predominantly everyone's lives. I think even people that aren't as affected as far as a work schedule goes by, that said they were already working remote, or they were already, or they're an essential employee. Other industries and the disruption caused within other industries is going to have a trickling effect, you know, locally. And just to use our chapter as an example, you know, I think about all the other events that our local partner, our venue, the Marriott, had planned this year, that they're just not going to see any revenue for it. Will they be open next year? I hope so. We want to do everything we can to support them. But if it's not feasible, then that's an additional disruption that we could face down the road. So now we're seeing an impact that we're having to search for another venue. And that's just an example. That's not to say that they aren't. You know, as far as I know, it's business as usual, and they are doing other things as well to pivot in their own sector. But yeah, so it's more so just kind of thinking about, okay, you know, fine, a light switch, you know, gets flicked back on and everybody goes back to work. What's all the catch-up stuff that's going to have to happen? Well, in the legal sector, it's huge right now because court hearings are getting delayed. Right now, we're seeing a huge influx with tenant-landlord matters just on our side. We're seeing a lot of landlords that don't know how to navigate, you know, hey, my tenant lost their job or they've been furloughed, and, you know, but at the same time, I have a mortgage to pay. And on the opposite side, so just speaking to that more broadly, every organization is going to encounter similar instances like that, whether it's disruptions with vendors or disruptions with clients. You know, we've been keeping an eye on our clients as well, just to see how they're being impacted by the virus and by the things caused by the virus. And what we've seen is that businesses are doing the same thing we're doing, which is trying to adjust, trying to keep going, moving the workforce, you know, remote. But then the big, or I should say the funny thing now that at least we're all joking about is, how does the employer justify everybody coming back into the office after everyone discovered that you could work remote, right? So that would be a huge adjustment. So think about the commercial real estate sector and all the office buildings. Are we going to see huge disruption in their industry when employers go, hey, you know what, we don't really need to rent out all this office space. We've already tested this out. So those are just some examples of the trickling effect that we're looking at on our side, at least.
If I could add too, and this would be applicable for both PenSHRM as well as you at the Bob Chamber with the membership, the importance of having associations and membership such as both of these chapters in Chamber is to lean into the different people sitting at the table as a member as a resource to talk through and to have panels and to have normality and to talk best practices. And one of the things that both of your organizations have is that ability to lean into membership. You know, I will say that prior to COVID-19, one of the things that Angela was bringing to the PenSHRM chapter was webinars and adding to the additional options for people, ironically enough, to be able to tap in to get credits from a remote standpoint. So a lot of the things that PenSHRM has been thrust into, Angela and the rest of the board had actually already been discussing things like this. So I think that those conversations need to continue to happen, and to be able to lean into people, for example, on the legal side, people who are on the real estate side. Bob, I know one of the folks that we're going to have on shortly is also in the real estate sector, even though on the private side. So just stressing that as a chamber member, as a PenSHRM member, you need to be leaning into your membership even more than you ever were, because that's where your resources are. So Bob, back over to you. I know we've got to put a wrap on our short edition. Final questions or comments?
So yeah, so I like that idea of certifications, because that's tangible value that you bring to your members, and that's not going to go away. So that's good, but the way you're pivoting to provide that is important. And this, as you mentioned, the long-term transformation about people working from home is critical. We're not struggling at the chamber, but we're working hard to figure out how we can show tangible value to our members, and I think we can. It's just, it's not the job I signed up to do. It's a different job entirely, but that's okay. Challenges are something to be faced and to be and to make you better. So hopefully we come out of this this dark tunnel into a glaring bright sunlight, and that we're ready to face the new norm. So I appreciate you guys coming on today and your great answers. And it also gave me food for thought, and I hope the rest of the viewers got some food for thought also. Shelley, over to you.
Just, ladies, is there anything from a resource standpoint, from a final comment, to put a close and a wrap on today's Biz Buzz?
Well, some of my final thoughts are what I've been telling people at work and in our membership is to, we support our employees day in, day out, along with our organizations. Oftentimes we forget that we need to support each other. So to your point, it's reaching out to those that you have networked with and leaning on them for sharing those best practices, but also supporting where it's needed, whatever that may be, because we do often forget about ourselves, and because we place ourselves secondary. It's part of our job. So in terms of resources, membership is a big area for resources. So making sure that you're staying connected, however that may be, through email, through phone calls, through texting, however, through virtual get-togethers, whatever that might be. The other thing too is we have a list of resources on our page. So again, everything is being thrown at us through the internet, through our inboxes. It's lassoing everything together and putting it in one place where everyone can get everything that they need, and that it's relevant and that it's up to date, it's timely. So we do have that resource page, and we do have those emails that are going out to let folks know what's happening as it's happening, and then a lot of events that we're sharing and that we're going to be holding, so that employees, or not employees, but professionals can get the information that they need as it's happening. And as we are all learning how to transform and shift with what's going on, that information comes out as well. So just making sure that everyone is staying in touch with us and with you to make sure that they're getting what they need as they're going through these changes as well, and continuing to support each other.
For those that are listening, can you call out the specific website?
So for PenSHRM, it's va.PeninsulaSHRM.com. SHRM also has a resource page, it's shrm.org. It's right on their homepage. They'll say COVID-19 updates, so that's where they can get that as well. And then signing up for our mailing list, they'll get those emails too. And then all of our social media sites, we post that information as well.
Very good. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on another edition of the Peninsula Biz Buzz. We appreciate your time, your questions, your following, your sharing, your liking. And that's it from us today. Have a great day and be safe out there.
Thanks, everyone.